Hello, welcome to Oye Dimelo Cinema Club. My name is Dino, and I'll be your main host tonight. But I'm also here with Steve Dez and Michaela, and for the first time, Jamie Shore. So I picked the movie for today's talk, and it is The Long Kiss Goodnight. It's from 1996. Geena Davis is in it, as well as Samuel L. Jackson, also Brian Cox. It's directed by Renny Harlin, who at the time was married to Geena Davis, so we can maybe talk about that a little later. Written by Shane Black, who ended up doing Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and the other guys. Is that what it was? I think the other
Yeah,
guys with
Iron
Russell
Man
Crowe.
3.
Yeah. So anyway, I picked this movie because um, yeah, I've been thinking about this movie a lot recently. We had talked already about Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and looking into that movie, I realized that it had a lot of the same feelings that I got from this movie. And then recently we just did Beetlejuice, that had Geena Davis in it, and I was like, well, we've been recently doing movies that ended in the year with an 8 in it, and we were done with that, and I was like, how about we kind of do like a Kevin Bacon thing, or you pick a actor from this movie and you gotta pick another movie that they were in it and kind of go that way. So I decided to do this movie because growing up, I used to love this movie. It's so fun, it's so great, and I swear to God, Steve, if you say anything bad about this movie, I'm gonna swim to Puerto Rico and strangle you in your sleep. All right. So that's why I picked it. Since I've seen this movie a bunch, I hadn't seen it since I was a kid, but I want to hear the first impressions of people that have not seen this movie. So I'll go with Michaela first. First impressions, first thoughts.
It's a fun movie. It is, but it's all over the place. There are like so many moments during this film that I was just like, wait, why are we suddenly like home aloneing it? Like, wasn't this supposed to be a serious, edgy spy film? Um, so it's like one of those things where is it arguably a good film? No. But it's a fun film. It's a
Yeah,
really fun film.
nice. Steve Dez.
Hey, I'm glad Michaela went first and I didn't take the blame. I agree with Michaela. I think the core substance of the movie is good, but I agree with Michaela that the way it was presented, shot, I guess, it was a little bit all over the place. And I don't know if because I'm just an older person and I understand a little bit more film or something, but I really disconnect heavy, like heavy. I disconnect from films where there's like 40,000 gunshots and the person doesn't even like just like, they just I can avoid all gunshots because I got special.
It was the '90s. You know, bullets have
I
come a long way since then. But in the '90s, it was like
Yeah,
Civil
man.
War had just been there. They hadn't really reciprocated. You know, they hadn't really gotten guns down yet. So give them a break. It
Uh,
was the '90s.
but anywho, first impression, this movie definitely was under my radar. Like if you wouldn't have mentioned it, I would have never seen it, never heard of this movie before. Even I, honestly, when we were watching Beetlejuice last week, I was like, where has this other lady that played the main girl, like where
Yeah,
has she
Gina
been? Gina
Davis.
Gina Davis, like where has she been also? And I'm glad you picked this film because like, oh, this is cool. Like she really brought it for sure. Like acting wise, like she killed it. She was able to flip around and even my girlfriend was saying like, "Oh, this gives me like a little bit of me, myself, and Irene vibes, like the way that she switched."
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
it definitely was a little more over the head on the whole, uh, yeah, thing
yeah,
of
but
like
that's my
now I'm
first
this.
first
Yeah,
impressions.
All right, Jamie Shore, you said you had to dust off the VHS that your mom had of this movie.
Now, I did not get the opportunity to do it that way, but I will say, Dino, I've watched this movie several times back in the day on a VHS copy growing up. So, obviously, going back to both comments, I get it. And knowing the context of Renny Harlin films, you have to know that Renny Harlin directed one of my favorite cult movies, Andrew Dice Clay's The Adventures of Ford Fairlane, Die Hard 2, Die Harder, Cliffhanger. Uh, I think still, I'm not sure, was Guinness Book of World Records the biggest box office bomb, Cutthroat Island, with his wife, Geena Davis. So I agree with all of you. I think that if you watch any of those movies, they lack a serious amounts of substance, but damn it, they're fun as hell. They are all over the place, but you can't say they're boring. That's the one thing I can defend. I think it's a ridiculous film, but uh, it's a fun movie. And Shane Black, who also wrote Lethal Weapon 1 and 2, I think puts in a solid script, even with the ridiculous nature of the story itself. I'm able to forgive that. In a period as the late '90s action films, when we had movies like Con Air and Face Off, I can buy this. I put myself in that 1996, 1997, 98 shoes, and forgot about what current cinema is like, and said, you know what? I'm not here to be critical. Dino, I think it's two thumbs up. I had fun. It's still a fun movie.
I knew I
Yeah,
could trust Jamie Shore for this.
yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, so I'll just add like, didn't really talk about my first impressions or watching it again. There was so much I didn't remember from the movie. I mean, like certain, yeah, clearly plot points or the whole intro. That whole intro where it does like the negative and positive like shots with the credits rolling in and all that definitely feels like it's gonna be way more hardcore. And it's a rated R movie. Like there are times where I'm like, this is PG-13, and then it's like, oh no, this is rated R. So yeah, if we think about it in '96, and now you like look at how strong of a female leading role that is, right?
Mhm.
Of like kick-ass, like how many years did you have to wait? Now you could be like, yeah, Gina Davis was doing it first, but because of Cutthroat Island, I think Hollywood like shut the door. It was like no more female action leads because that movie was she kind of disappeared, and clearly her and her husband, that might have been the end of their marriage due to the films kind of doing badly. She has since come up and been doing some stuff. She was in Glow on
She
Netflix,
was.
which
Yeah.
I thought she killed it in Glow as well.
Yeah.
So '96, I loved the movie. Like Jamie said, I loved Cliffhanger. These are movies that certain action scenes, as a kid, I would play with my friends and we would do like the same type of stuff or the same type of moves. Like we didn't have Christmas lights that we could like cut it off and fly up and grab a gun and shoot at the same time, but in my mind we did. So yeah, and I agree with Michaela. Like it's a fun movie, and this is almost like a lot of the Fast and the Furious films are not great movies, but I can see why they're enjoyable and why they're fun. So, and I was thinking of this when I was watching it because I'm not entirely sure when I must have watched it probably in '97, '98 in Paraguay, but I can't remember, and maybe you guys have your own periods of recognizing when I recognized Samuel L. Jackson being Samuel L. Jackson. I don't know if you guys understand me with that, but it's like I started seeing him in more things, and so like he's in this movie, he's in Die Hard 3, right?
Mhm.
Like I remember then later seeing like Coming to America, and he's got a tiny role in that. So it's like it was right around the late '90s, early 2000 that I kind of like recognized like Samuel Jackson
Right.
being this guy
Right.
that was great. But yeah, so
My apologies. I couldn't hear what you said.
Someone's listening to me.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, this was really fun. Like, this was definitely a different shade of Samuel L. Jackson that I really got to enjoy this time around, because usually his characters are so sure in their abilities and what they do. Like, I feel like when people cast him, like, he is the bad motherfucker. Whereas, like, in this one, he's all talk.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
For
which
sure.
it was interesting. Like, he played bumbling very well and very true to like who he is as an actor, which was really enjoyable.
And still with that, he still has that Samuel L. Jackson moment, and its quote of the film is, "That's right, you can't kill me, motherfuckers."
Yep.
Like, still get your Samuel L. Jackson moment out of the movie. Yeah.
Nice. So going for that, do you guys have a favorite line or scene in the movie? I guess there's so many. I'll end with just. Also, I forgot that Larry King was in the movie. Like, how great is having Larry King in the movie, and Sam Jackson at the end saying like, "I'm always frank and earnest." Do you have that?
I'm always frank in Atlanta and Ernest
No.
in Chicago or something
Yeah,
like that.
or whatever. Yeah, I'm frank in Chicago. I'm frank in Chicago and earnest in Atlanta or New York or whatever it was, and such a great line. But yeah, one of so that for line is one of my favorite ones, and then definitely. There was I forgot Brian Cox was in it, and his whole interaction with Samuel L. Jackson. Like, there were so many great moments. And you know what? I was talking. I'm sad Jason isn't here because we've been talking about Chekhov's gun. Jamie might also get into this, and the idea of Chekhov's gun is if you walk in with a gun in the first scene and you put it on the wall or it's on the wall, you have to use the gun. It can't just be there. And there's a couple instances when it can be that. It can be the matches, but also Brian Cox when they're like, "How many guns do you have?" And he says, "I got a gun here, a gun here, and I got a gun right here, right in his pants," because he was like, because the dudes are not likely to want to grab your junk. And sure enough, when she's being tortured in the water, she remembers there's a gun in his pants. And I just thought that was like bringing it back was so amazing. I just love the movie. It's just so silly and over the top. But yeah, you guys have. I know Jamie brought up that line. Michaela, the scene.
I mean, I don't know about it being the favorite line, but like the whole time JP and I were making fun of the chefs do that.
Yeah.
Like, I have a feeling like that's gonna be something we're gonna be just like doing something and be like, yeah, chefs do that.
Yeah, that's a great moment. That chefs do that now. I was waiting at the very end. I was waiting for her to bring that up like one more time to make it.
Like, talk about like an opportunity missed. Like, if they brought it up one more time, it would have been.
Yeah, it'd be a chef's kiss.
I got my favorite line.
Okay.
When they're escaping in the car with Samuel L. Jackson, everything's blowing up. The little girl goes like, "Don't hit the car."
And he just looks.
The look.
I'm like, what the fuck? What? That's what you're worried about right now?
There were so many great one-liners and just like stare downs that is underrated. Which clearly Shane Black doing all these other movies. The other reason why I wanted to do this was because Steve, you were saying you're such a fan of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang that I was like, well, let's see his earlier kind of work to maybe you seeing if there was any connection. There was a little bit of narration at the beginning that, like you guys were saying, that it was a little bit all over the place. It was like, all right, where are we going with this narration thing? It just kind of went over the top. What I noticed, I'll go into this. I don't know if we'll get into it, but I knew I remember the explosion and all that, but I didn't remember the whole idea that you know, the U.S. security system or whatever, they're working with basically white terrorists or people, evil people, to create a terrorist attack to get money and funding for war. And they're
In the
just like,
World Trade Center about an explosion.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they talked about the other explosion and how they had found that they had gotten, you know, passports or whatever in the FBI
And then
or
blame
CIA
it on the
reading.
Muslims.
Yeah, blame it on the Muslims. And as we're leaving Afghanistan, and I'm watching that, and it's like, we need a war. We need to blame it on the Muslims so that we can keep our budgets. And I'm just like, wow. And this was '96, before 2001. You know, it just to me, I just noticed all that, and I'm like, oh wow, that's really topical still. Other than, you know, the like, it was still that weird moment where they were mixing practical stunts and models. Like, clearly at times you can see it's just like a car model being with the fire and like the CGI burning behind, similar to what they did in Independence Day when the fireball is going through the tunnel, and it's like, I'm just gonna jump in the side room and the fire is not gonna follow oxygen, it's gonna pass me. So, other than that, but you guys notice anything with the whole let's blame the Muslims? Like, because people are gonna buy that. Just to get a little deep into that. I know Steve heard it.
Well, I mean, that was like such a big thing during that time too, though. You know, because like, I mean, we watched Persepolis not too long ago, and that's a big part of their history is that internal terrorism and that general unrest. So of course it was really topical. You know, and like that's like another thing is like this movie really wanted, like, the writer, he's so smart, but like sometimes I think he like gets dragged down by that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And like I think that was definitely one of those moments.
Do you feel like it got? Do you feel like it got too convoluted?
Yes, I think he got so like wrapped up in like the concept of what this was and trying to make it fun,
Yeah.
and that like he just kept adding things to the point where it's just like too much. But that's part of what makes it fun too, you know.
Yeah.
These movies are supposed to be campy.
I guess too. I guess that's where the complement of the writer and the director did work together, because someone like Renny Harlin, who is all over the place, could take maybe those convoluted aspects of the plot and script and be able to throw in that flair to not make the audience overthink all that that Shane Black was trying to convey. You know, maybe I'm overthinking that now, but you know, as I was going through it and as I was looking back, you're right. I think there's a lot loaded. It's a very loaded script. But I think, once again, what makes you get pulled away from that is that I really don't need to absorb all of that and think about that. And Renny Harlin pushes us into the next scene, in the next sequence. So I think it was. I think that's the one. Going back again, I think, Geena, why I like this film is it's a happy marriage with Renny Harlin and Shane Black. And for Renny Harlin, I think especially because I think he actually had a good screenplay to work with.
Yeah.
And complemented his style. You know, Renny Harlin is not a. You're never going to say he's an accomplished director. He's a fun director, and I think this is probably some of his better work. So,
Yeah.
It seems like most of their films are like not really. They're all like happened to do better once they were on VHS or on cable, or, you know, I don't know if that's just, is that bad marketing? Is that the studios? Is that just like they came out?
We'll go back. You know what? I'll say this much: I like Cutthroat Island, and it made $10 million on a $98 million budget. And yes, it is a very one-dimensional film, but it, you know, and it was made fun of. But I watched it a couple years ago, and I was like, you know what? I enjoyed myself. I feel like I got my money's worth watching it. You know, I can be critical of films, but I think at the end of the day, Dino, if I know that I've gotten my money's worth, that's a good enough film for me. If I feel like I came in with the expectations I was looking for and then was surprised and was actually surprised, and I think with Renny Harlin films when they got on video, that's the same concept. I think you come in with some maybe some low to mid expectations, and you'll be thoroughly surprised about how much more of an enjoyable film it actually is. So, and I think that was kind of the power of the VHS market and the rental market, especially in the
Mhm.
80s and 90s.
For
That's
sure.
why there are a lot of films that people talk about now that, um, it's because they had that second life on VHS.
True.
Well, even something like The Nice Guys, I think that, and like a lot of these movies, critically acclaimed, like they seem to get good reviews. They, I guess, just didn't do well with the box office, right? But then have gotten like a second or third life, especially with like streamers, and it's just, it just happens to be like, yeah, these are great movies. They were
Yeah.
either just up against other movies that were huge budgets, or
Mhm.
and now I think more movies are going to be coming out that are similar to this one and other ones that are just going straight to Netflix or whatever, like the bodyguard's hitman and stuff like that, or hitman's bodyguard, like all these kind of just fun action kind of movies. It's just like, let's put them in, and some of them aren't necessarily even as good written or acted in as movies that came out from Shane Black and also
Yeah.
Rennie and stuff like that. But
Well, Dino, isn't that the lost art now? Is I feel like movies now, it's such an algorithm now with Rotten Tomatoes on one end and everything being streamed through Netflix and other providers. The beauty of, and not to sound like an old codger, but what I loved about the concept of the video store was it wasn't an algorithm to make you decide what was going to work best for you or you looking at a rotten or fresh score. You simply walked down the aisle and looked at the cover art and the description on the back. And if you trusted them, you would talk to the video store clerk that could talk to you for hours about movies. And
yeah,
that was it. And that, unfortunately, is not around anymore.
Well,
Um,
and I have to like kind of add on to your point there that like it doesn't help that there is a sort of elitism when it comes to certain kinds of consumption.
mhm.
Like when it comes to going to the cinema, like usually the people who are willing to shell out that 30 are like people who like try to define what good film is, and it's usually really serious, really.
Yeah.
And on top of that, like the whole algorithm thing, like it's not so much that, what am I trying to say here with this point? Um like there's just so much to consume now that
Yeah.
it's hard to like break out of that bubble, you know?
That's fair. That's fair.
Like it's not like just like look at shows like Great British Bake Off. Like this is like way off, but like now there's like three different spin-offs that are completely different mediums but are clearly like geared towards that. So if you like a certain thing, there's just always like two more things to consume that are very similar, so it's hard to branch out like
Yeah.
they're like once upon a time.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a fair point. And yeah, you can get lost. You can really get lost in that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I like I said, I think I think it just came back to what I kind of like to do now when I watch movies is if I see something on Netflix, if it intrigues me just in the description, I'll watch it, and then later on, out of curiosity, I'll go to a Rotten Tomatoes or I'll go to other sites and just get reviews on it. And it amazes me the many times where I don't look at those reviews or that fresh rating first and watch the film and how much I'm surprised I'm thoroughly enjoying the film and then more importantly surprised that it's considered a bad film. And
yeah.
I feel like that happens more often than not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the
There-
point I was trying to make.
Oh.
It's just like it's like since there's so much out there, like how do you make your decisions when like there's no possible way to check every single thing?
Yeah.
That was the point.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's a streamer, I can't remember which one, but I think it's whatever the last movie I watched with Jason before he went to Detroit, and we were getting ready, and so I like paused it. It must be maybe Amazon is doing it now. It's someone that also, no, not Amazon. Anyway, one of the streamers, when you pause it, it gives the Rotten Tomato rating. Like it dims the screen when you pause, and it gives Rotten Tomato rating on it. And I was like, I don't want to see this. like, like I just paused it, and I don't want you to tell me that it's got a 30% Rotten Tomato, you know, like or whatever. I already pressed play. I don't need you to like put it in my face what other people think about the movie. Which, by the way, I really enjoyed, and I was like, that was way off. But just because I know Michaela works at a bookstore, and Jamie, you brought up the movie stores or video clubs. At least that's what we call them, el club in Paraguay. And unlike books that you shouldn't judge by the cover, I feel like at a VHS store, it was all about judging by the cover.
Oh,
a lot of times that's how you pick. Like, oh my God, look at that cover. And you know, and maybe read a little bit in the back, but in the back, you know, it's like maybe 5 sentences. And so if they had a flashy cover, more than likely I was definitely taking it home.
Oh yeah, well, even movies that you and I have talked about and enjoyed are not considered, one, were not box office successes and are not critic or audience favorites. I think one that's on that list, you know, and maybe you've changed over the years, but you and I both used to always love talking about the movie Moon Over Parador with Richard Dreyfuss.
Yes.
And I still love that movie. But it's one of those that if you went to Rotten Tomatoes, you asked, looked at a box office number or whatever, it would be something that now you would just avoid like the plague. But it's a movie that has its flaws, but it's got great moments and great characters and great character work that you need to check out at least once.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other thing too. I think that, you know, even when movies are uneven in the plot, or something's off with one character, you didn't like certain aspect, you know, there's a certain moment or a certain scene or a certain character that I'm always like, give the movie a shot. I'm always like, check the movie out at least once, because you may be missing out on a great moment or a great character. You may say I didn't like the film, but I liked that one scene, or I liked that one character.
Yeah, and kind of like for us, Jamie, the fact that anyway, it's only like 3 of us, but the majority of us were all in LA, so everyone has had one or a couple different types of jobs in the industry, and so we've also all been kind of like, it's hard to hate on a movie when you've worked on a movie and you know what goes into a movie and you know how hard everyone works. So a lot of us, we see it and we can be like, yeah, it's fun. It's not a great movie, but you can kind of see what they were trying to accomplish. And it is also that idea, like, if you didn't like something back then, unless you had a newspaper that you could write in or whatever, or call into radio, that was it. Yeah. But if you didn't like it, you just walked out, or you just told someone you didn't like it, your friend, or you changed channels. And that is so hard now, because the minute, it's like a snowball effect, or avalanche even, right? That it's like once there's like one bad review, then everyone starts just like nitpicking it, you know, and you have like 100 Steve Des just like going down the mountain, saying like, oh, bullets don't work that way.
Well, but what I like about this right now, you know, we're talking about all this, and you kind of wonder, is the cult film dying? But I don't think so, because I think you still have forums and you still opportunities like this to talk about these films. You know, so I don't know, and I hate to get off topic with the film we're talking about, but do you feel like the concept of the cult film is maybe not dying, but do you feel like it's less impactful?
Well,
I think it's
I was about to say, I think it's just a natural progression of how we consume media.
Yeah.
It's not so much that there's no such thing as a cult film anymore. I think it's more that there's just more out there to consume. And
Sure.
since there is so much,
Yeah.
it's more just like this group likes these sort of films, and so we make more things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if anything, it's not so. It's just we're getting so oversaturated with what could be considered cult films. So instead of having one, we have three, and those those groups are just larger in number, so it doesn't feel as isolated and special a thing.
Sure. Okay. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's evolving because
Yeah.
it's the one thing, regardless of Rotten Tomato, it's almost like people are able to find their, I was gonna say tribe, but I know that that's kind of like not necessarily anymore. But their family, right?
Yeah.
They're able to find their gang, their family quicker because now they're able to go online. So I think cult films are being like what we remember as cult films are easy. They're easier to find, right? It used to be only like when there would be film prints, like or you would have to be lucky if there was a VHS. And I'm thinking of the reason why I don't think it's dying is you have something like The Room that became so big and was so cultish, right? And was kind of following the whole Rocky Horror Picture Show type of format of like still putting it and stuff like that. And what did they end up doing with The Room? Let's make a movie about The Room, which is just bizarre if you think about it. Why are you going to make a movie about the worst movie ever made? It's just not what I think about what, we could be doing with money. But then the other one, and like Rocky Horror, right? That did great in London. It did really well on Broadway. And then when they came out with the film, they forget who it was. They just kind of shoved it. They didn't know how to sell
I'll put reference to that. The Rocky Horror Show has never been a successful live musical. The film has been the success.
No. But it was successful in its first run, if I'm not mistaken. That's why it went from London to Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was the movie, and then they went and did the TV live musical. Not so long ago. Because it has has stayed popular and it's more out there, right? I mean, the fact that they were doing Rocky Horror Picture shows in Alabama surprised me, right? Like it was the way that people were allowed, especially guys, were allowed to dress up, and we knew a lot of the people that were in those shows that did with Chase and I can't remember his name anymore. But so now I think people are easier to find them, and you know what is why it's evolving is because a lot of these cult films now are kind of ending up in one stream or another, and the minute that algorithm starts racking up those numbers, let's do a revival, let's do a whatever, let's do a this, and there's been to go back to this movie. There's been talks of doing some sort of a sequel for a long time. Because even recently I saw an interview with Samuel L. Jackson, and I was like, is there a movie like that might not be one of the most known movies or whatever that you really enjoyed more than other? And he brought up this movie. It was like The Long Kiss Goodnight. I think is a great film that I'm in that not a lot of people know. And so there's stuff like that, and then even people talking about like the other guys that they were gonna do kind of a follow-up movie to that, and I think even maybe like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, because the numbers are now showing in the algorithm, right, that people do watch them, that people kind of enjoy it and stuff like that. But so I think there is an evolution of what like a cult film means, and
Sure.
and I guess the thing is, what
Access.
what are new cult films, right?
Yeah.
How do we? It's almost like if we're able to say like, oh, this is a new cult film that just came out this year or this past year, then it probably isn't, because people have probably watched it, right? Um, it's hard for me to think of like what, I don't know, Atomic Blonde. I don't know what are movies that kind of went
Oh
under
yeah,
the radar.
Atomic Blonde would definitely count as a cult classic because it's not something that's like it's something that was popular enough that enough people heard whispers about, but they didn't go to, and then they revisit it.
Yeah, I think that's that probably you hit the nail right on the head about that's the proper definition of a cult classic is right there. Like, yeah, and like I said, it's just an interesting thing, as things have changed. But you're absolutely right, and I do think it's also cooler now because you do have much more opportunities and platforms to find your gang or your group or your core. Where back in the day, I mean, it was. Um, you just by chance going to a cinema or going to a video store might find your crew, or you would never find your crew.
Or
You
you
know?
had to be lucky to sit across in the extended pre-orientation at college next to Jamie Shore, and
Yeah,
then happen to be 3 doors down in the same
yeah,
hall and,
yeah,
and
yeah.
just talk movies.
Yeah, it had to be one of those like, hey, let's. Do you like Time Bandits? Yeah, I do too. Like it had to be through conversation that you liked,
Mm-hmm.
or actually, Time Bandits is a good movie. The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. You had to just through conversation find out somebody liked that film too, and that was
Right.
like, hey, that's your person that you connect with. Um, so yeah,
And
and I think it's also great. I mean, I like the fact that there's been a sequel talked about for I guess Dina I was looking that up too. 15 years, the sequel to this movie.
for this one,
Yeah,
so the big issue is the fact that Gina Davis and they broke up. So it's like the director and the star broke up, and then part of it was Gina Davis' career kind of uh, stopped there for a while. But there's ideas of it being her daughter, that like her daughter has to hook up with Samuel Jackson to go and try. That's what I kind of read, not recently, a while back, that it would be something maybe along the line of that, of like someone's taken Gina Davis, and so now the daughter and Samuel Jackson kind of team up.
let's keep it fresh and there's a daughter out there and she's an adult now,
Yeah,
but we keep Samuel Jackson, so from the original
right.
film, yeah. So
Because I mean, yeah. Anyway, it's one of those like, oh man, it'd be so great, and at the same time, like, don't. Because watching this movie, I'm just like, this is great. I can put this back, and maybe in another 15 years, let's rewatch this movie, and I would still get joy from it, and not feel like they need to follow. And that's an issue now, especially with something like Fast and Furious movies. It's like, is it a franchise? Can we franchise the movie?
yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If not, then why do it? That's such
Right.
a big thing.
Well, and the common one that still happens and was happening is let's remake or reboot the film.
Yeah.
Did I really need to see a remake of Point Break? No, I'm fine with the 1991
Are
Patrick.
you sure, Jamie? But hear me out. Hear me out. This time, he's not just like ex-football quarterback. He does extreme sports.
Listen,
That's not my sidebar. That's Jamie's sidebar, by the way.
I'm just putting
of-
two
of
words
Point Break.
here that remake didn't have that the original had. It's Gary Busey. Gary Busey. Pappas. Like sorry. Like didn't have that Gary Busey magic in the remake. So didn't need it, didn't want it. And I think that's the thing too. I would not want to see a remake or reboot or a series of the Long Kiss Goodnight. I can appreciate it. I can dust off a VHS and watch it and be satisfied and say, you know what, I don't need to know any more of the story, and I don't need anybody to change or fix or refresh the same story that I've already.
So okay, so I just thought of a question, kind of following up with that, of seeing things. The fact that this movie came out in '96. This is an interest. What tropes can you recognize in this film that you think they are still doing in movies, or tropes that you're like, oh wow, that's so 90s, and they're not doing that anymore. And as an example, is the amount of smoking, of like chain smoking in the
Oh
movie,
yeah. Oh
which
yeah.
they even had, which I remember that the boy that like was stealing the cigarettes, and then she like a funny, such a great little one-off. Like, did you really need that in the movie? Like, yeah, let's have her like with a freaking sniper rifle ask for a cigarette for a puff, and then be like, what did we learn about smoking? And then he pisses his pants and throws the cigarette away. But yeah, so I would say just smoking in general. I mean, and Samuel Jackson even brings up Newports, right? Which is, is a whole other issue on like menthol cigarettes and everything, especially, being pushed on minority communities and stuff like that. But are there tropes?
I can tell you one, which is African American character getting treated like shit throughout the whole movie, and him still being resilient and helping his white counterpart. That would never happen today. This dude got thrown off buildings, got shot, he got thrown off a car and then picked back up.
Yeah. He got blown out of a building. I mean, yeah, for sure.
And still went out of his way to save the day after all the shit he was put through the entire film.
Mm-hmm.
Is like, really, like, like it was.
I
Yeah.
do think it was great of like the bonds. I was like, and where did they find me? In my locker. I was like, oh shit, they set you up. And he was like, no.
I love like towards the end, like he already knew, like, all right, so I'll see you when you save me.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I
then
guess
he
for
ended up- yeah,
me, it
that's
was like
fine.
the weird dream sequences. That is so 90s. Oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially with the mirror effect.
Yes.
Yeah. It trying to be. It was like trying to be creative in the 90s. Yeah. 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 That's a good one. That's a great one.
Yep, yep. It's like,
But I see
it just
some-
needs an edgy dream sequence that makes no sense.
On a mountaintop. with
On the
mirror.
mountaintop, specifically. But that was part of the story. She fell off the cliff.
Right. But that you don't find out till a little later. So at first it's just like, why is she in a mountaintop looking at a full size mirror? But yeah, no, I just really enjoyed the movie just because that's the nostalgia also in me. Like I can remember who I was watching the movie with, and it's interesting that it's also cliffhanger because it was like right around the same freaking time, and it was the same shit. It just
And
makes
like I
sense.
also kind of realized that a big part of the campiness, like in the edits of this film, one of the main editors worked for X-Files.
Got
Just
it.
putting that
Yeah.
out there.
That-
And like
yeah.
I couldn't help but like see a lot of the pacing matching up that kind of style, which was kind of fun to like clock.
Yeah.
I've got a couple. I mean, obviously, I think you mentioned this, Dino. Maybe you didn't. It was just obviously the characters like One-Eyed Jack, the total Bond villain
Yeah.
trope,
Not you.
and the inability by these villains to kill her, like to kill her. They had opportunities, and it's like, well, we're just gonna leave this one guy. We know she's dangerous, but we just need one person watching her or taking care of the job.
I
That's
do
a-
love that
yeah.
they kind of do the wink to the camera almost of the kind of with that of just, hey, you're gonna kill me, I'll freeze to death. Why not just tell me where you're going? It's like, all right, like they know. It's like like this has happened before. It's like the third time she's gotten out, and you're like, all right, fine, you're about to die, and just like walks away. But I will say for that, plot wise, the idea was for them to freeze without getting shot, even though they would have scars, but like die from hypothermia, and then they were gonna dump them in, and just like dump them in the woods, and she went crazy and they died of hypothermia. So I'm like, fine. So that one time you decided, because let's try and make it hypothermia. Just the now. Let me tell you what we're.
Well, and it's just like on top of that. Oh,
Yeah.
on top of that, like they also have like this whole thing of like making the second higher up guy like so ruthless and so bad, and it's just like, so you're gonna freeze them to death? You're not just gonna like stabby, because you stabby the other guy who didn't matter.
Exactly. He made this very like elaborate death. It's like you couldn't have just done a quick stab or a quick gunshot.
Like,
Something quick and easy. Yeah.
Especially when it's like specifically like his character to do that.
Yeah.
Not
Like,
not
okay.
not the greatest villain, just more douchey. Like
He was too pretty. Like he didn't have like
Yeah.
enough gravel or like edge to him to be able to be like, what do you mean? Just kill her.
I will say, the acting, his acting, where she look at her eyes, like
Talk
I
about
did feel it there. I did feel him there, recognizing that, and then being like, no, fuck this.
Well, I'm not
like,
saying that he did a bad job acting. I think that was totally a casting issue. Like that, like there,
No, I agree, but
no, I totally agree. Because like, talk about a missed opportunity. That scene would have been so like, if that scene had belonged in like any other film, like that would have been made such like that was like another thing that the writer I feel also kind of like threw in there because he got really excited and then like never touched on it again, which is kind of a shame because like that's kind of spicy. Like, talk about missed opportunity for a redemption arc that goes wrong anyways.
right. It just shows how horrible he is.
Yeah.
All right. Before we get into final thoughts, anyone have anything to add? Questions, comments? The one thing I did want to have a question, because as a kid, I never really got why. But did you guys recognize how she was able to like start the fire in the cooler, like the liquid coming out of the doll?
Yeah. So okay, so that was actually a scene that I enjoyed. That was one of my favorite scenes because I remember the scene that she's being surrounded by all this gasoline. And she's like, and they're like, oh, we got you surrounded and stuff. Don't make me light it up. And she just looks at the doll and they just hold it for like very quickly, but enough to make the point. And then when she's in the freezer, she's just squishing the baby and the baby's peeing gasoline because that's what she did. But the thing that made me laugh really hard was that she was trying and trying and trying, and she's like about to give up, like, "Oh, we're gonna die here," and the little girl just goes, "I got some matches," like,
Because of the candles. Like, talk about a stretch. Talk about a stretch.
But it was put into one of the first scenes, or in the first act of the film. Here, have these, always light a candle. And when they got into the compound, she saw the candle by the windowsill. So it's, that was her. Good, because as a kid, I never quite I never quite put her soaking the doll or putting the filling it with the kerosene or gasoline. I had this weird idea of like, was it part of the, like, was there something in the, was it like battery acid from like the doll, like just like weird MacGyver shit. That it's just kind of like the mechanics of the doll had something that
Yeah.
had some sort of light. I just didn't put the. But this time when I watched it, I totally got the. Oh yeah, it's freaking. They even mention it, and that could maybe be a language. I mean, I was bilingual, but it doesn't mean that I was like 100% just really quick.
No, maybe
with
you
it.
haven't played with dolls, bro.
Maybe I play with them now. All right.
Also,
So
how about that little girl, like literally escaping danger throughout the whole movie? Because
yeah,
the one that I felt most concerned, it wasn't even the one that she crawled into the truck. It was when her mom just threw her.
yeah,
Like, what kind of shotgun was it to make that kind of hole? Like, it like magically turned into a laser gun for like 5 seconds, and then we were back in the real world. Just wanted to point that out because like they made sure to make an effect of like a laser.
yeah. Hey, it was One-Eyed Jack. He don't he lost his eye because of that, you know, because of her. So he showed up. Also, Escape with that is the only one watching a TV. Like he has his own TV in a cell. Is able to escape like that. But yeah, what a great shot though. Like I'm tossing my kid into a treehouse. Like that's how. I mean, that just shows how she turned on a dime from being a teacher to being a cook, right? And
Right?
I wonder, are they? Would you think that's a? This might be more for Jamie. Do you think that this is what a cook does? Is a joke on Steven Seagal in Under Siege? Because which also has Gary Busey, so there's that content. You know what I'm talking about? And Steven Seagal is like using the knife, and he's all about using knife, and it's like, oh, I'm just a cook. I think he brings that up in
Oh
the.
yeah. That's the whole. That's the exact. Yeah, that's the whole premise about it. Yeah.
So I wonder if they were just like, you know what? Let's fuck with Steven Seagal.
Could be, man. Could
um,
be.
I just yeah, I'll have to
You're saying
look
that
into
when
that.
she was chopping, like real quick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because she says, I must have been a cook. Here, what else you got? And she's like chopping carrots and then peppers, and then it has tomatoes, and then like throws a tomato. And in Under Siege, that's what also Steven Seagal even does, like throws knife at at a board that they had there.
I'm gonna put. I
So
might be on a stretch on this. I think this was just a half step under that. This could have been a Marvel character in a Marvel film. If you amped it up just a little bit more, the ungodly amounts of talent, strength, precision. You see
I
these
mean,
ones like throwing the
she
kid.
killed the cricket at the end.
Yeah. The,
what?
I said
What'd you
she.
say, Steve?
I said she killed the cricket at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God. So what does chefs do that?
Yeah. Chefs
well,
do that.
I mean, still the jarring moment to me as a kid is the snapping of the deer's neck. Like
Oof.
that is a fucking insane moment. And that's all I'm saying is I just feel like if you splash this with a Marvel label on it and added a little bit more extra boost, this could be a Marvel. This could be a Marvel picture. Like Gina Davis was out of this world in this.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's her Black Widow. I mean, maybe that's how Samuel that's what what's his face was before he got into. Um,
Are we gonna
I
try to?
mean,
Are we gonna try to go deep here and say that the Long Kiss Goodnight is some sort of multiverse origin story?
yeah. What's his name? Who runs Nick Fury? That's Nick
Fury.
Fury before I mean, because he's called Ernest in one place and he's called Frank in another place, and then he came up and he's called Nick Fury in another place. I'm just saying, guys. Let's
Maybe she's the
connect the
original
dots.
Captain Marvel.
Follow me here.
Yeah.
No, all right. Oh, you brought up the deer, so which that alone is rated R, right? Let me just break Bambi's neck. But, 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 but Are we not mentioning the guy that died in the car with her, from either CO2 poisoning or being
God.
burned alive, or
Yeah.
hopefully died in the impact, because that'd be horrible, just sitting there passed out, and like, no, it was no mention the next day.
Yeah.
But,
It was inferred he didn't make it.
yeah. All right. With that, rest in peace, old man that we never knew your name. Steve, final thoughts? Maybe.
Final thoughts. My final thoughts is this movie is fun. Uh, this movie has very cringe-worthy flashbacks for 2021 and plus audiences. Uh, a lot of films. So if you like Fast and Furious and all that stuff, definitely you're gonna like it. Uh, it has a very strong female performance, which I do appreciate because especially 90s and early 2000s, well, more 90s I would say. There's not a lot of those films. Uh, and yeah, definitely something different, something to, if you haven't seen, at least watch it once. And those are my final thoughts. I wouldn't recommend it to kids though.
I mean, I saw it as a kid, and I came out okay, I think. Um, Michaela, what are your final thoughts? And is it called? Did it pass the? Is it the? No, what is it? The belt test?
Rectal?
No, what is it? Which one is
Rectal?
it? Yeah. Did it pass it?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. Just because she is the main female, there's not another female character. But no, it's a fun dad movie. It's like something that your dad would like make you watch on a Sunday, and like, yeah, it's really really fun. Also, Samuel L. Jackson's character has an outfit that kills it.
Yeah, can we
I
talk
thought
real
he-
quick about that outfit? I was
Thank you.
like, so he just had this outfit laying around, like what?
He took it from Brian Cox.
Yeah, he took it from
Remember?
Brian Cox because like they have the same sweater.
And,
But,
and they stole Brian Cox's car, but they were completely wet, right? So then he just opened the suitcase and
But I
took
mean,
it out.
it fit perfectly. That's the thing.
And
that I
the
was
pants
like,
were a little short. The
Well,
pants
too.
were a little short.
Okay, maybe I
Like
was
those
paying
slacks
attention
and that
to the
sweater
other
looked great on Samuel L. And I don't, if it was realistically, they would have been hanging on him like a robe.
Yes.
You know,
Like I ain't complaining because that outfit was fire.
I'll forgive it. I'll forgive it. Who knows? Maybe Samuel's got some tailor skills, and what we don't know is he was able to alter that outfit.
Well, Geena Davis did put duct tape on the leather jacket that was his. You know,
Yeah.
they had the hole. Which, yeah, that scene was just cool in itself. That she knew again that there was a gun in his pocket, and her being so kick-ass that she was able to. Oh, did you guys show the? Real quick, right before Jamie, did you guys notice who was in the film who became a huge comedy star and had a TV show and and was in one scene in this movie?
Who?
Is CIA
Larry
section-
King.
Oh, Larry King.
No. Jamie, did you get it? Am I mistaken, or was that not Carlos Mencia before he was Carlos Mencia in the alley?
That's not Carlos Mencia. Bro.
I don't think that was Carlos Mencia.
That was not Carlos Mencia, bro.
Yeah.
Are you
Believe me,
sure?
that was Carlos Mencia. I would have been like, that's Carlos Mencia.
But it was before Carlos Mencia. I'll look it up. Anyway, Jamie, give us your final thoughts. I'll look it up right now.
once again, it's that late '90s action film, kind of start of middle of the John Woo era of action films. So this one snaps right into place. So you put your mindset into when it was released. It's kind of like going back in time. It's almost a time capsule of that genre of film at the time. Um, I would say I would definitely agree there are some cringeworthy moments for a 2021 film viewer. Love the strong female lead. Definitely a fun picture. Not saying it's on your Oscar ballot, but once again, if you want to get a good hour and a half, 2 hours of a thrill ride, it's a great movie. Yeah, it's got its goofiness to it, but I'm gonna say it's forgivable. It fit perfectly with the entire picture. Nothing, even the goofiness didn't seem out of left field. Even the stuff we're talking about, and maybe it's just me, but I was like, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So yeah, that's like I said, I'll put it away and I'll dust off the VHS in another 7-8 years and watch it again.
All right. And Jamie, not saying it's not for the Oscars, but you're not saying it's not. So could be. I
Well,
don't know if that makes sense.
and last thing too, hey, we were looking at the timeline. It came after Cutthroat Island, and it made money, so it was a redemption film for Renny Harlin and Geena Davis, actually.
True.
So
just not quite enough.
no, but I'd recommend it one time. Try it out. Watch it once.
All right, my final thoughts. I just enjoyed it. Again, it was a movie that I watched a bunch as a kid, and would say certain lines, which is weird because again, as a kid watching it, I shouldn't be using that kind of language or whatever. But yeah, I just really enjoyed watching this movie after a good 12 years, 15 years from watching it last, probably. I would recommend it to people. Again, if certain movies come up like Die Hard or Cliffhanger or Kiss Kiss Bang Bang or Samuel Jackson, any of those kind of things, I would definitely recommend. Like, have you seen this film? So I enjoy these kind of 90s movies. The one thing that I think was missing as a trope is having like a kick-ass female lead and not having the antagonist, not necessarily the main villain. Like the main villain would still be that douchey dude, but there would be like a main villainess type, that either like Samuel Jackson would have to fight. Like I feel that's one trope that was not in this film that I guess would, if you're playing like 90s action trope bingo, that would definitely have been
your point counterpoint characters, your hero, and your villain, and your villainess, and your heroine. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, that's a good point.
All right, well, that's the Long Kiss Goodnight. I recommend that. It's good and it's fun. No one's saying it's a masterpiece, but there aren't that many masterpieces out there.
I'm going to say with aficionados, it's one that you do, if you like Shane Black or if you're deep into a certain genre like action films, the 80s or 90s, it's definitely one that, give it a watch.
Also, do you want to see Sam Jackson kicking ass while being kicked in the ass?
Well, and it's during a really big hot streak for Sam Jackson being Sam Jackson. So if you want to see that evolution of where Sam Jackson became what we know as a Sam Jackson, this is on that trajectory. So
for sure.
There's some motherfucking snakes in some motherfucking plane.
There you go. He started somewhere, right? All right, Steve, what do we have next? That's my Jason Eccles impression.
Next, Jason, Dino. I'm sorry, I'm colorblind. I I don't know
my
why.
God.
I don't know why you asked me because it's not my turn. It is Michaela's turn, but Michaela has a challenge, which
Ooh.
is now the next round of movies. You have to pick, and let's define this here right now. An actor, and can it be director or writer?
Yeah. Actor, director, writer.
So
Shit, if
anybody
it's
that's
even.
involved in the film, it could be even
Yeah.
a custom person. You have to find another movie that person is in. It could be a person behind the scenes or in front of the camera. So, Michaela, which movie did you pick and from who from this movie?
I chose Death Becomes Her.
Oh my God. Okay.
All right. And if you can figure out the connection, I'll be very impressed. But one of my favorite parts of this film was the costuming. And Joanna Johnston was also the costume designer for this one.
Love it. I love it.
Wow.
That's
There you
great.
go.
Oh, yeah.
So
Oh,
Death
God.
Becomes Her is the next movie. So for Michaela, El Dino, Jamie, Steve Des TV, we'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Hello
Yeah,
there, I am Steve Des from Oya Dimelo Network. Don't forget to subscribe, and also don't forget, you can literally click there or click there, and you watch more videos. Isn't that great?